All right, viewers, this is huge. President Donald Trump has just signed an executive order imposing an additional 25% tariff on India in response to its continued purchase of Russian oil. That is massive news coming in from the United States of America. Trump has slapped an extra 25% tariff on India. What is the breakup of that, viewers? Please do keep in mind all of that happens in the backdrop of India already facing a 25% tariff. And this is an additional 25% tariff that President Donald Trump signed as an executive order, imposing an additional 25% in response to India's continued purchase of Russian oil. So clearly, it's very, very clear now and out in the open that it is really not trade one is looking at. This is geopolitical pressure on India to make a geopolitical choice. The latest that is coming in, and we're going to quickly play that out for our viewers. Big news break. President Trump has just signed an executive order imposing an additional 25% tariff on India in response to its continued purchase of Russian oil. And all of this information disseminated by the President of the United States through a post on the social media platform X. But the implication of that is huge. The trust deficit between America and India at an all-time low. I want to quickly cut across to my colleague Siddharth Zarabi. Siddharth, you know, this war now only escalating between India and the United States of America. One thing now clear, this is not about trade. This is clear pressure to make a geopolitical choice.
Absolutely. And in fact, as we are breaking on our screens, President Trump has signed an executive order which adds another 25% to the existing 25%. Remember, this is supposed to come into effect from the 7th of August, and clearly now doubling this tariff rate. The big question, is this the penalty that he had promised as far as his belief that we are buying crude oil from Russia and financing Russia's war on Ukraine? We don't know the answer to that. But for now, it's very clear that 25 has become 50%, and that clearly puts us at the upper end of his tariff bargain that he's trying to force down the throat of many economies and countries in the world. And this additional 25% really is going to definitely, Preeti, as you said, harden positions, because this is certainly not the act of a friend. Neither is it an act of someone who understands the depth and the dynamics of the India-US trade relationship. And therefore, this 25% additionally on goods will reduce the room for negotiations and conversations between India and the United States. We'll, of course, have to wait for how the government of India responds to this. I imagine that response will also be forthcoming very shortly.
Siddharth, would you stay with me? Because this is big news, viewers. And all of this is when President Trump had threatened to substantially raise tariffs in 24 hours if India did not stop purchasing oil from Russia. So he's clearly pulled the trigger. We are now staring at a 50% tariff. My colleague Rohit is also joining us from Washington with the very latest. Rohit, all of this also in the backdrop, because it hasn't come devoid of criticism in the United States of America itself, because you've had Nikki Haley who came out and said that, listen, China buys oil from Russia, China buys oil from Iran, yet you've given a tariff pause to China and you're ruining a relationship with India.
Yeah, and she did say that, but she also asked and cautioned India not to buy oil from Russia in the same tweet that you're referring to. And President Trump had made his mind very clear yesterday. He said he was going to do it in the next 24 hours, and he's put additional tariffs of 25%, and they go into effect. And I'm reading from the White House release that I have here, is it's going to go into effect from 21 days from now. So this is 25% of tariff, 21 additional tariffs on what he's already put out there. It's going to go from 21 days after the date of this order, which is today. And then in the release that White House has, they've blamed this entirely on India buying oil from Russia and attributed it to the fact that the situation in Ukraine and Russia, India essentially helping out by purchasing oil has allowed Russia to continue this war. So this is big. I think this is massive. To put this in writing in the executive order to say that the reason why he's doing so, that is Donald Trump is putting these additional tariffs, is because they believe in the White House, and President Trump firmly believes that India has enabled Russia to continue fighting this war in against Ukraine. So it's big, it's massive. And I think this is a very, very, I don't recollect in the last 25 years, we've had a low of such kind when it comes to India and US relationships. So 21 days from now, we'll have additional 25% tariffs.
I want to quickly cut across to my colleague Karishma Sudhani, who's also joining us. What really does it mean for India? Because viewers, it just also now narrows the scope of retrieval of talks where it comes down between India and the United States of America. But Karishma, I want you to come in. How much could India now stand to lose if this tariff actually kicks in, which is 50% 21 days from now?
Preeti, we need to understand that a 50% tariff on us is going to be very difficult, and India's trade ministry will have to now look into this specifically. The fact that comes as a big surprise to us. We also need to understand if the pharmaceutical aspect is going to be included in this or not. We were looking if we have the appetite to include already the 25%. Couple of economic reports that have come out recently also spoke of how our total exports on a global scale would be impacted by close to about 1.8%. But with a 50% tariff, it's going to really push us down on the ladder.
Really pushes down on the ladder. What will be India's response? We're going to be, it's going to be coming in quick and fast, because this is huge. Where it comes down to a trust deficit, does it come down to relationship with the United States of America? I would reckon in the recent times, because this is an all-time low. You had the president of the United States of America threaten to raise the tariff if India did not kowtow to what America wanted, which is stop buying Russian oil. And now, seemingly the penalty that he was speaking of in an executive order, which he's just communicated through a post on social media X, the tariff for India is 25% over and above of what it was last, which takes it to 50%. It will come into force 21 days from now, is what the United States of America, the president says.